Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Self-Leadership Lab. Today, though, we are not going to be talking about self-leadership, but we are going to be talking about leadership. Today, we're going to be talking about servant leadership, which is a theory we haven't really discussed and a practice we haven't discussed on this show. But I'm really excited because we've got a guy who's dedicated a lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of writing. He's written a lot of books. I'm sure he'll tell us more about it. But today, we have Kevin Wayne Johnson on the show. And so, Kevin, welcome to the show. And please tell everyone a little bit about you, and then we'll get into the topic of servant leadership.
All right. Excellent, Bobby. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a joy to be here with you. I'm a native of Richmond, Virginia, and that's where I grew up. Most of my family going all the way back to my great grandparents on both sides. I'm a product of the Richmond Public Schools and Virginia Commonwealth University School of Business. It's kind of a funny story. I started out as a pre-med student because I was very, very sickly as a child. And as I began to heal and grow up, I really understood the premise and the passion and compassion of physicians and doctors and anesthesiologists. So I wanted to be one. So I thought. So I showed up as a freshman on this big college campus, and I go into the freshman class for chemistry one-on-one. That's the first class that we have to take as pre-med students. History one-on-one, 300-person auditorium. The professor looked like he was like 1,000 yards away, looked like a little ant. And I could not grasp what in the world he was talking about. So I decided not to become a doctor, and I ended up in the School of Business, and that worked out pretty well. I graduated with a degree in business administration, went on into the federal government, not knowing that I would stay for 34 years, but I stayed for 34 years, made a career out of it. And then I retired, and I wasn't tired. I wanted to do something else. I still have some energy. So what I focus on in this season of life is leadership. The whole concept, the whole premise, the processes, the strategies, and the principles that govern what good leadership looks like. And I started my company, the Johnson Leadership Group, with that in mind. And my team and I, we train frontline, mid-level, and senior level leaders in government and corporations, in churches and nonprofits, as well as academic institutions. Been married for 32 years, soon to be 33. And from our union, we raised 3 sons. And they're all back to back to back. So when they were young, my buddies called me Fred McMurray because that comes from the old TV show, My 3 Sons. So that's a little bit about the journey, and happy to be here with you today.
Wow. Well, thanks for coming on, and a very, very rich history of work experience and life experience. And it's funny how where we started isn't where we ended up. And that just shows you one of the beautiful things about leadership and development. You know, you never know where the next step's going to be. So today specifically, we want to talk about, you've just written a book called Leadership with a Servant's Heart. It's out. I try to read every book before a guest comes on the show, and unfortunately, it's just too many books right now, and but I've gotten through a lot of it, and I really highly recommend it. It is well written, and it's a very thought provoking and very enjoyable read. So congrats on that, and
Thank you.
We wish you all the best success. So for all of you listening, go pick up a copy of it. We'll put it in the show notes and everything. But give the audience a little, your definition or textbook, whatever one you choose, of what servant leadership is. Because like I told you, this is the first time we've talked about this leadership theory on the show.
Yeah. Well, servant leadership, as many of your listeners may know, is a concept that entered into the American marketplace back in 1970. And that premise has everything to do with developing a servant mentality and a servant approach when it comes to working with people. I take it a little step further. The reason that I write and the reason that I title the book Leadership with a Servant's Heart is because it's very important for leaders to recognize and acknowledge that it's more than just what we know, our subject matter expertise, and our intelligence. That's expected. But leadership also aligns what's in the mind with what's in the heart. And what's in the heart exudes respect, value, care, and honor for those that we're serving, but it also incorporates an element of compassion and empathy as well when we're dealing with people. That doesn't make us weak as leaders, it makes us human because people that we're leading are always looking for the answer to three basic questions. They never say it out loud. It's internalized, but when you and I show up and we're designated as the leader of a team, of an organization, a company, a government agency, the people that we're now responsible for have three questions. Number one, can I help you? Number two, are you going to provide me some hope? And number three, do you care that I'm here? In other words, am I visible to you? That's what they're thinking. That's what they're internalizing. Hopefully, the answer is yes, because the leader is there to develop, to equip, and to prepare people so that they're ready when they move up to the next level of responsibility. So we're supposed to make sure we share information, provide resources, get them to the right training programs. This is what leadership is all about. There's no longer an expectation that we do the work. We've already demonstrated that we can do the work. Now we take care of those people who are going to be doing the work. And that's the difference between what I view as servant leadership introduced into the American marketplace back in 1970 and leading, because the ing is an indicator of continual, recurring, and ongoing. We're leading with a servant's heart. Like I said, it's from the heart that we value people, we respect them, we honor them, and we demonstrate that we really care for them. And that makes a big difference because we're talking about human behavior.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like what you said there about, you get into the leadership position because you've already done the work. Now it's time to, help and facilitate others to do the work, and doing that with a servant's heart. A lot of times I think leaders don't see themselves as servants. They see themselves as the boss or
Mm-hmm.
the top person or the most important person in the room and all that. Whereas a servant doesn't do that, right? They're there to serve others. It's the name, servant and servant. Um, but so what further define for me what a servant's heart is to you?
Well, to me, it's making sure that we recognize and acknowledge what each individual on the team needs to be the best that they. We're helping people to tap into their potential, but you have to get to know people and you have to allow yourself as the leader for your people to get to know you. Because now we're on our way to establishing relationships. And as we all know, trust is not given and respect is not given. They're both earned. Trust is earned and respect is earned over time. And part of earning that trust and earning that respect is just cultivating, maintaining, and sustaining good relationships with the people that we work for. Now, and the people that work for us. Now, leaders, we do hold people accountable. Don't get me wrong. And leaders are not doormats, but we can show that human side of who we are, and then we can make the transition from having to mandate, dictate, and threaten to now just ask, and people will be more than willing to get it done. And that's the difference. And you're right. Any leader that shows up to re-emphasize that they are the leader, that they're the boss, you might have to think about it again. If you have to remind people that you're the boss, you may not actually be the boss. So
Yeah.
that's something to think about as well. People know your position, they know your role, they know your title. We don't have to repeat that. We're just there to make sure that they get what they need so that they can be the best that they can be and to be ready when it's time to get called up to the next level up.
Yeah, yeah. And that whole that whole taking a servant's approach to leadership and that whole human element is one of the things that I find that's missing in the literature and the teachings a lot of times today. I mean, sure, we all say, oh, we're here to take care of people and all this, but yet at the end of the day, leaders are measured by metrics and the performance of their company or their division or this kind of thing. So with that in mind, what would you suggest to someone who wants to take a more servant leadership approach and then feels like they're either constrained by that by the organizations they work for, or maybe they haven't developed that human side. Maybe they were more of a doer all their lives and they really don't know that human element and they don't know how to act with other people in that leadership role.
Yeah, so that leads now to a really, really great conversation and some open-ended dialogue around how are you motivating your people? Because you motivate people either through the words that you say or by the actions that you take. And I have a phrase that I use all the time so that people can kind of think about it, especially when it comes to leadership. And that is wherever you go, there you are. And people do what people see. So if any leader is having some challenges with getting people to go west because they keep going east, or to go north and they keep going south, I ask them to do a self-reflection and a self-assessment. What are you doing? Because most people are going to model what they see. And you are a role model and you are the example that people are watching. And so that gives now a pause to say, I never thought about it that way. And my response would be, well, that's why I brought it up. Let's have a conversation about it. And then we'll talk about different strategies and principles to really motivate people to be the best that they can be, because everyone's different. You can't use one wide paintbrush to paint the entire wall. You kind of have to take some time. Some areas you need a small paintbrush. Other areas you can use a roller. It takes all different types of tools just to paint a wall. So think about the tools that you can take out of your toolbox now to lead these 18 different people that report to you, because all 18 are different. And then we kind of walk through some of those principles, and that now sheds some light on some things that they can do better to help their people. It's all about helping the people, and it's all about being there for them.
Yeah. There's a common phrase to say what you don't like in others is probably what you don't like in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so true with the leadership and the example you gave about going north and your team's going south. I mean, it probably means you're going south too. Maybe your compass is just broken or whatever. So, I mean, I hold to the theory that all leadership begins with yourself and the self leadership. And then I think once you understand yourself better, then and only then can you be a true servant to others. Because like you said, if you're going the wrong way, you're doing the wrong things, you're doing everything counter to what you expect others to do, then how can you have a servant heart? And then I also like what you said about taking time to get to know everyone. Everyone is different, right? And that doesn't mean that you change your standards or you change whatever, but to get the most out of people, to get to know them and understand their needs. And I mean, it's simple things. I heard a story one time about a guy trying to inspire his team to do more work, and he thought buying monitors would be like the thing to do, so everyone could pick out their own monitor. And this one guy just wasn't performing. And so the guy talked to him and he said, well, what's wrong here? And the guy goes, well, you've got this trail mix in the break room and someone's eating all the cashews out of it.
Uh,
And so this leader had the thought, well, I'm just going to order this guy his own, jar of cashews. And he brought it to his desk and the guy had all the cashews his heart's desired. And you know what? That's what got him to do the work to the standards and to the productivity that they wanted. And you know what? That's kind of a servant's heart, right? To listen to your people, because I mean, I know as leaders, a lot of times we think we don't have the time, but I wouldn't challenge you, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I think if you don't take the time to understand your people, then that's where the detriment comes. If you think you don't have time to take care of people, then you probably don't have time or your priorities in order in other areas of your leadership journey.
yeah, I agree on two fronts there, Bobby. Number one, good leadership always starts with leading ourselves, because we have to be comfortable in our own skin. We have to know our own communication style, our conflict management style, how we go about listening, because every one of us has blind spots. So we never see ourselves the way other people see us. Then the second part is you're absolutely right. We have to make sure that we're doing everything that we can as it relates to forging relationships with those that work with us. And my advice is to keep it simple, keep it informal, and keep it short and sweet. Just simple things like saying thank you and I appreciate you. Great presentation today goes a long way because everybody's looking for some affirmations every now and again. How about on a Friday afternoon when people are about to depart and we're not going to see them again until Monday morning? They're going out for the weekend. Have a great weekend. Over time, some will open up and start to actually share with you what they're going to be doing over the weekend. And a smart leader will remember that so that when you see them Monday morning, you can regurgitate and just kind of ask them, how was that ski trip to the Alps? How did it go? How did the children like Hershey Park? And these little things, these small conversations, informal conversations, lead to some really, really great benefits. This is not a get someone on the calendar, meet in the conference room, and have a 1 hour meeting. These are just really what I call drive-bys, and you're just asking each other, how you doing? And before you know it, the team is talking back to you. Oh yeah, how was your trip to Colorado last week? Because they remember, and this is how you forge those relationships. And again, like I said earlier, now we can transition to just asking people to finish a project or a task or an action or an initiative versus the leader who has no relationship having to mandate, dictate, and even threaten to get some things done. So that little small investment every now and again, maybe every other day, maybe even once a week, just kind of asking people, how you doing? Get into a little conversation. Sometimes people don't want to get into their personal business. They'll let you know. But other than that, they're more than willing to have a conversation with you. It builds rapport, it builds chemistry, it builds camaraderie as well. And now, again, we are well on our way to earning the trust and earning the respect because it takes time. It's not given just because we have the title and the position, but it takes some time. And once we get there, it's game on. I mean, the light really illuminates and you get things done as a team, as an organization, and then individually as well. I'm not saying it's a perfect approach. I'm not saying everybody's going to necessarily be on board, but the overwhelming majority of people, that's what they're looking for in the.
Yeah, yeah, and you can tell. I mean, you said illuminate, and you can tell when you get someone illuminated, right? If
Yeah.
no one's going to get excited about a spreadsheet or some kind of report or something that they've got to do, but you talk about a ski trip or something like that, and you can just immediately see it in their eyes, and that little bump of inspiration, that little bunch that you said earlier, that they want you to give them hope. Well, that gives them hope because that means you see them at the human side. And of course, none of this should be done superficially because people can see that too. Like I don't know about you, but I see so many people that'll hear this podcast or, similar talks about servant leadership, and then they kind of overdo it, right? Because that's not them as a person. So they'll come and they'll start asking you questions, and it almost feels like, hey, what is this? And they're doing it because they read it in a book or they heard this method and they want to try it. So it has to be. We talk so much about authenticity. Authenticity. Oh man,
Mm-hmm.
easy for me to say. You know what I'm saying? Authentic.
Yep.
Being authentic in this culture today. But really, if you have to force it, it's never authentic, right?
Yeah. And
And
people will pick up on it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So that's one of the keys in my limited studies of servant leadership that's it's got to come from the heart. And that's why I like where you say from the heart, right? And you put that element because it's got to be you, and it's going to be different the way you talk to an employee and the way I talk to an employee because you know what? we're two different people. The only real similarities, well, we got several, but we're both from Virginia and we both like, leadership, talking about leadership. But,
Mhm.
other than that, you probably have different hobbies than me. You have different ideas, different things that get you excited. So be yourself as a leader too. And this is where, the self leadership, servant leadership all come together. Um, but yeah, to get to your book, because I love the way you outline it and you give us a key and a goal and a result to servant leadership. Can you walk us through? Let's just start with the key. What's the key to servant leadership in your opinion?
Well, the key is to recognize and acknowledge that leadership is so incredibly important from again, I said it, this is probably the third time, from the human element perspective, in terms of who we are as people. Don't overlook people as just being workers, but recognize that people have needs, they have issues, they have concerns, they have challenges. We're working at a time right now where some of our colleagues are taking care of elderly parents. Some of our colleagues are rearing young children. Some of our colleagues have their own set of health concerns and health issues that they're battling. Some of our colleagues are traveling 90 minutes from home to get to the office. They have that long commute. And so, a key to leadership, especially leadership with a servant's heart, has everything to do with making sure that we recognize people as being people and not just work. If we can get that basic, foundational, fundamental principle correct, we're now on our way to being able to motivate, inspire, and encourage people to be the best that they can be.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds so simple. I mean, it's essentially the golden rule. Doing to others as you would have them do unto you. But I,
Absolutely.
I tell young leaders and old leaders alike all the time, put yourself in their shoes. Because in
Mhm.
this stage, you mentioned earlier, you've raised three children. Well, you're not raising them now, but you can remember what it was like when you did raise those three children, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm not one of these people that wants to dwell on the past, but use the past as a really good history and sounding board about the way you go. I mean, remember your first job. Remember how your first boss treated you. I mean, if you talk to anyone, they can always tell you who was a good leader and who was a bad leader. And you know
Mhm.
what? 99% of the people I talk to, it never comes down to the actual work. It comes to exactly what you said, how they were treated, how they were respected. Did the leader, earn the respect or just demand it? I know in my life, most of the leaders that I try not to be like were all these, people who didn't treat us as humans, and I was lucky. My first job was in the Army and I was an enlisted guy. So I got to see that power all the time and never looking at the human element. So that is really, really good. The
Yeah.
so unless you want to say anything else, so let's discuss the goal of servant leadership.
Well, the goal should always be to help people find their sweet spot. I've referred to it as tapping into their own potential. Remember, we all have blind spots,
Mhm.
and none of us see ourselves the way others see us. So, good feedback, good input, open conversations, holding people accountable. But accountability, just like feedback, has everything to do with helping a person to improve and do better. You have to remember now, most of us, when we hear that word feedback, I want to give you feedback. Most of us automatically think it's in relation to something that we did wrong, because historically that's been the way that we've treated it in the workplace. But if we could flip that script and just remind people that feedback and accountability given in the spirit of helping people to get better and to develop can really, really pay off some really, really good benefits. So I want leaders at all levels, frontline, mid level, and senior level leaders, to always remember that in terms of how we go about equipping and developing people. We're trying to help them to tap into their potential. Many people don't have a lot of self confidence. Many people have self-doubt. Many people don't think they have what it takes to get it done. I don't have the qualifications. I didn't go to the right school. I don't have enough experience. I just don't know. I didn't have the right mentor or coach. Those are excuses that hinder people. And when you and I come alongside to say, oh, yes, you can do it. You have what it takes. Great job. Over time, they'll take that step forward and raise their hand for one of those complex assignments that perhaps other people on the team don't want to take. Why? Because we gave them confidence along the way on the smaller responsibilities so that as they build up to the bigger responsibility, now they're much more comfortable and they know that they have a leader that will give them top cover.
Yeah.
We'll give them enough room that if you make a mistake, and there's a high probability that you might, it's okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna. There won't be any retribution, no retaliation. It's just we chalk it up as a learning experience, and it's okay to make a mistake. And if people know that, then they're going to be willing to give it all that they got.
Yeah, yeah, and that goes where back to the human element again. I mean, you've
Mm-hmm.
got to see someone and observe how they are. I mean, this very present in my mind is this week I dealt with two different people, and one was struggling. And knowing that person, I kind of just asked them like, "Well, what have you been assigned to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And what it was is they were being assigned a creative task, but they weren't creative types. They were a doer. So the creative type needed to hand them and say, "Hey, do X, Y, and Z," and they would have knocked it out of the park. And so as a leader, you've got to see that person and not put them in that situation. Or if you need them to get to that situation, you got to kind of incrementally do it. You can't just have them, write documents one day and then have them come up and tell other people what they want in a document, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the human element there, was the key. And then another one you said about the self-confidence. I was a younger worker, and they don't know their place. They don't really know the craft yet, and so they're always apologizing or saying this, that, and the other. And it's like, fine for that person, just finding what they do really well. And
Mm-hmm.
did it meet the mark? No. But did they get closer than I thought? Yeah, I was impressed. But yet the whole time they were apologizing and saying, I'm sorry, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
as a leader, the human side, I felt empathy for this person because I probably was there too. And I don't know about you, but like in my development as a person, my career wise, the people that sat aside and had the patience and the human, compassion for me, empathy for me, are the ones that I remember. And they're the ones where, I was inspired to go and learn more, because it really doesn't matter how much you know, or like you said earlier, what school you went to or whatever. It really matters, how do you apply it? And that's both at the individual and the leadership level, because just because you went to leadership school of this, or you have this degree or this certification in leadership, it means nothing if you can't apply it. And so I love that as the goal, to inspire and then remove those obstacles. You didn't say those words, those are my words, but remove the obstacles from your followers to allow them to be the best versions of themselves and to show up every single day. And again, that only comes when you put metrics aside and you put humans as the metrics. If you really, I mean, again, I know we all have to succeed, and I'm not saying we ignore all those things, but if you keep trying the same thing over and over again and you get the same results, what did Einstein say? That's insanity.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I see a lot of insane leaders out there. So I know I rambled there for a minute. So give me your thoughts on that if you want, and then we'll move on to the
No,
final.
that's good insights. I just don't want people who are in leadership positions to take their eyes off the prize. And the prize is what? The human resource. The human resource is the most valuable resource in any organization.
Yeah.
And it's not a coincidence that we have departments called human resources. There's not a coincidence that we have a chief human resource officer who in many organizations report directly to the chief executive officer, because it's very, very important. And as we go on, um, and we find ourselves in an environment where we have five generations in the workplace at the same time, think about how complicated that can get. Each generation exposed to something a little bit different. They have their own separate proclivities, interests, likes. They see the world through their own lens. They have different viewpoints, different perspectives. And the leader is that person that kind of brings that all in and is responsible for the chemistry and the camaraderie and the collaboration and the cooperation. And a lot of what we're talking about, I make it sound easy, but I don't necessarily mean that implementation is easy.
Yeah.
But over time, that's why, again, that's why my books are titled, excuse me, Leading with a Servant's Heart, because it's an ongoing and continual process.
Yeah, yeah. The leader has to evolve and develop just as much as the employee and the people that they are, the human resources that they are guiding. I mean, if we think we have to stop as leaders from developing ourselves, then we need to either stop being leaders or reassess ourselves, because it is ongoing. And one other thing I'd like to touch on before we get to the result of servant leadership was, you talked about these 5 generations in the offices that we work in today. So many people see that as tension. I see it as complete beauty, because where in your life do you get that? Maybe in your home life when you're a young child and you have grandparents, great grandparents, if you're lucky, you get those generational gaps. But in the workforce, it's becoming more and more common. And what a great way to learn. And I think that, like, a leader with a servant's heart then gives everyone, all the followers, the whole servant's heart, and the growth and the understanding that you can get, because so many of us are so dogmatic and, well, I'm Gen X and I've got to think this way, or I'm a millennial, I got to think this way. You throw all that away, learn from someone who's done this for 20 or 30 years longer than you, because one, they're going to make your job a lot easier. They're going to probably help you be more efficient, more effective. But two, you can learn so many human skills, and you can learn how to love. Because really, I mean, we didn't talk about this. When servant leadership boils down to me, is your love of your fellow human, right? And, in the Bible, it says, love the Lord your God, but, treat your neighbor as yourself. Love, love, love. Like, so love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. And if you don't love people and you're not willing to grow, and I'm on another ramble here, but
No, that's good.
I'm very passionate about this part of leadership, because I think it's so lost in the culture, and I'm assuming you do too, because you've written a book about it, and you're going on this tour and talking about that this year. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
but so all this, I mean, we talked about, the key and then now the goal, but what can the leader expect as a result, or what should be the expected result when we start practicing servant leadership?
One of the things that we talked about at the very beginning, bringing clarity to the leader about why it's so important to serve as a leader. Because again, back in 1970, when the concept was first introduced into the American marketplace, there really wasn't a lot of clarity around what does that mean to be a servant leader. It doesn't make a lot of sense. A lot of leaders equated that as being weak, and that wasn't the case whatsoever. But when you really understand what it means to serve people, what we're really talking about is making sure people have access to information, make sure that we're sharing resources, making sure that we understand how people tick so we can get them into the right training and they can become the best that they can become. In other words, when you serve another person, you're looking out for them, you're looking out for their best interests. You're almost like a GPS and a navigator. You're navigating their journey and you're helping them to recalibrate and to reroute when you see them going in the wrong direction. And one of the things that we share with organizations, especially those in the C-suite, I remind them it's your responsibility to make sure that you don't appoint someone who may be really, really smart, really clever, have a high IQ, a high level of acumen about the work, but they don't like people. They don't want to lead people, they don't want to be a supervisor, and that, and you put them in that role anyway. So we teach them about the ramifications of doing that and the benefits of helping people thrive who do like pouring into people, mentoring and coaching people. And those are the folks that they should groom to be in these leadership positions. So that's the totality of what we're talking about. Leadership with a servant's heart helps leaders to understand exactly why what's in our mind has to align with what's in the heart. And when that happens, now we're on our way to narrowing that gap that is so wide when it comes to what people expect from their leaders and what leaders are actually delivering. Our job, my job, is to help to narrow that gap. And that's the work that we do.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's a beautiful thing. You know, one of the takeaways that I got from your book so far is that you said that servant leadership is something that should be taught at all levels, right? And from the time you're young to the time you're now. So, what tips do you have for people who, let's say, they're just starting their career, or people who are newly appointed leaders? Like, how can they develop all these things we kind of talked about? Like, what would be the first? Like, give them a couple first steps or second steps that they can take to go down this journey.
Well, the first step is always for me, the first step with all leaders for me is to embrace, align with, and just give it a big hug, is what I tell people. The concept of getting to know your people and then allowing your people to get to know you. It's just very, very important. Um, Here's what I used to do. Our staff meetings were Wednesday mornings at 10 o'clock, and we would gather in a large conference room. There would be about 15 leaders around the conference room table and about 25 other people on the team that would be in chairs along the wall. So there's a good number of us, 30, 35 people. And I chose not to sit at the head of the table. They already know I'm the head of the organization, that I'm the leader. They already know that. I'm not going to sit at the head of the table. That's my choice. I sit in the middle of the table. And what I would do is open up the meeting with about a 120-second, that's 2 minutes, soliloquy or executive summary of why we're here and here's the desired outcome. I would do that in about 2 minutes. Now, the agenda had already gone out. So you have your agenda in advance. You come to the meeting prepared. I open up. This is why we're here. Good morning. How you all doing? I had a rough drive this morning, but I made it, and I'm ready to go. I just tell a little story. Or I had a hard time this morning getting my youngest son out the house. He almost missed the school bus. I'm here, right? Last night I called myself cooking something special for my wife. Guess what, y'all? I burned the broccoli. And these are little stories that we tell. My people are getting to know me a little bit better. And then after my little 2 minute, then we go around the table and everybody gives a 2 to 3 minute update on an important project. Number one, you're letting us know how things are going. And then number two, you're giving us a caution in the event you need some help. That's where the team chemistry and the team collaboration and camaraderie come in, because the finance person might be able to step in and help you out if you're short $5,000. So that's what we do. So the chief operating officer, the chief human resources officer, not deputy, and we would go around the room, the chief of staff, property guy, the facilities guy, the security person, et cetera. And the meeting is scheduled for an hour. But because the agenda went out in advance, and because I keep my soliloquy short and sweet, 2 minutes, including any type of comedic story that I might have, we always finish 15 minutes ahead of time, and I can give people back their time. So we're doing two things. We're team building, number one, but equally important, I'm sending a message to them that they should enjoy coming to the meetings. Our meetings aren't boring. They're not drab. They don't go beyond the time limit. I give them back 15 minutes every time. So we kind of overachieve. And all of this is part of relationship building. I'm getting to know my people are getting to know me. I tell leaders who are just getting started, I'll tell leaders who have been at it for a while, that is the number one approach to leading people. Getting to know them, but being open and receptive and allowing them to get to know you. Now you're well on your way to earning their trust and earning their respect. And it makes a difference, because you're trying to get people to collaborate and cooperate with each other. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's definitely doable. And that's the number one thing that we share with people before we start to unpack all of the other strategies and principles that we talk about.
Yeah, wow, that is beautiful. And
Yeah.
so many of these meetings I go to now, they'll still open them and it's like, "What's your favorite ice cream or flavor of ice cream or something like that?" Well, that doesn't teach you anything about anyone. It's just like, "Oh, Kevin likes strawberry ice cream and Bobby likes chocolate." Like, well, who
Yeah.
cares, right? But
But what
you're
but what I would do, Bobby, sorry to interrupt you, what I
that
would
noise.
do is from time to time, I would do something like, well, you all know my favorite dessert, right? So it's a warm brownie pie with walnuts with the vanilla ice cream and some whipped cream on it. If you happen to have a cherry, I'll take it. And so I'll do something like, oh, we went to my wife's favorite restaurant the other day and the food was phenomenal. But you know what, you all, I asked for the dessert. You all know my favorite dessert, and they didn't have it. I was all upset. But I'm feeling good now. I'm here this morning. So they know, they remember that vanilla
Right.
ice cream is my favorite. And then over time, what happens in the little informal one-on-one conversations, somebody will tell me, oh, I like strawberry. Somebody else will say, I like chocolate. I like butter pecan. And these are conversations that we just have. It just kind of takes the wind out of the air and it just helps people to relax and they know they can get their work done in an environment that's easy, but at the same time, we hold each other accountable. We're here to get the work done and we're going to help each other out to that end. And that's really what it's all about. If we can create that type of environment and atmosphere, you're going to get the best out of your people and you're teaching them good leadership skills so that when they move on, they will be a good leader in their organization as well.
Yeah, no, so many leaders take that for granted that you are training the next set of leaders because we're all going to move to different positions and in different professions throughout our lives. So yeah, train the people around you and by show them the red carpet, give them the right way to do it. Because if you rule by fear, they probably will rule by fear, and it just keeps us self-leaking ice cream cone, as we used to say in the army. It just keeps going, going, going. But you just need
Mm-hmm.
one person to break that cycle. So I encourage anyone listening today, be that person to break the cycle. And you know what? Just because you're not the head of an organization doesn't mean you're not a leader. You can lead all the people around you by your presence and by you give that servant attitude and your willingness to help other people out. Well, Kevin, if you've got anything else, the last word on this, I do love the way you outline servant leadership, and if people want to read more, obviously we'll direct them to your book. But why don't you give us the last thought and tell people how they can get in touch with you, in case they're interested in learning more.
All right, excellent. Well, it was an absolute joy being with you. Thanks for the invitation. I really appreciate being with you and all the great work you're doing. The name of my company is the Johnson Leadership Group. We're based in the state of Maryland, and the website is www.thejohnsonleadershipgroup.com. And there you'll find all of the information about the different types of training and coaching that we do, the clients that we've served. We also have an online course that you can purchase there. And then our books, Leadership with a Servant's Heart is actually a series of books. So we're up to book number 3. And as you mentioned, Bobby, we're in the midst of our 12-month book tour. This month, we're in month number 7. So we're going through 25 different cities across the U.S. And in the month of February, we'll be tour stop 15 and 16, New Orleans and Phoenix, respectively, doing different events. Just basically leading conversations around the topic of leadership, doing some meet and greets, serve a little bit of refreshments, and then we do a book signing. So more than likely, when you check out the schedule, you'll see I'll be coming to a city near you. But Leadership with a Servant's Heart is available everywhere that books are sold. Of course, Amazon, your local bookstore, Walmart, Target, Books A Million, et cetera. It's also out there on Goodreads as well. So pick up a copy for yourself. It's available in audio, also ebook and print. So we want to make sure that we reach everybody depending on their specific need. And if you're looking for someone to train your team or your workforce, just reach out and touch. We'll be more than happy to come to a city near you, and we'll deliver that training and that coaching for you so you can see your team and your organization skyrocket.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for taking time off of your book launch and your book tour to come on this podcast and share this information with you. And as I mentioned, I'm thoroughly enjoying this book, and I cannot wait to finish it because I've learned so much already. And do encourage everyone to do it. And I would also encourage people. He didn't say it. We'll put it in the check Kevin out on LinkedIn, because like his book tour and the way he organizes all these things, he's too modest to tell you this. He's organized all this himself, and I mean the guy's a genius in that. And so I'm just getting a joy out of watching you, and I look forward to, finishing this one and reading the rest of your books. And thank you so much for giving us a snapshot of what servant leadership is and what it means to you. So thanks again.
All
And
right.
and to all those who are listening, this is the self leadership lab, but today we went a little bit different. We did a different experiment. We looked at servant leadership, and it is a critical element to how we lead ourselves and, of course, how we lead others. So I encourage everyone this week, be a little kinder. Look for the human in those you lead. Look for the human in yourself as well. Don't forget that you're also a human and you can have feelings and emotions, but don't let it stand in the way of making those connections and helping people to realize their best. I thank you all for listening. As always, I'm Bobby. I look forward to talking with you soon. Have a great week, everybody.